This was the product that we wish we had when we were working on bridge housing. I call them bread slices because they kind of look like, think about it like a loaf of bread, right? They all come together and then they open up. We tried to find something that could toggle between that spectrum of personal privacy and operator needs for security. There's very much an intent about making these feel higher quality and residential, and there's a message there. It's telling people that they matter. My name is Yan Krymsky. I'm the design director for Perkins Will in Los Angeles, and we're looking at Dome. We do self-initiate and self-fund research within Perkins Will. Part of that funded the research for Dome. My role is really to oversee all of our projects. In terms of in-house, we have a pretty big team. We couldn't do it without our manufacturer partner, Shield Casework. And they're out of Kansas City. I had originally worked with them on a project here in LA. They do a lot of work in Los Angeles, and mostly they work with solid surface material, which is what Dome is made out of. And they've been enthusiastic collaborators ever since. Perkins Will is really more in line with traditional architectural services. So we do urban design, some landscape interior design, branding as well, but really manufacturing product development is not really in our bag of tricks. Our office here in Los Angeles is very civic minded. We work on a lot of projects with government agencies, and that's because we want to improve the quality of life in Los Angeles for everyone. So we reached out to Bureau of Engineers and got involved with bridge housing. We were one of the first two architects kind of in the first generation of bridge housing. The sprung structures, really this conditioned space side is essentially a large open dormitory style sleeping environment. They asked us to write a spec for type of furniture system that accommodates someone for sleeping. We started to do research on what those functions might be. We did several tours, talked to a number of operators from interim housing facilities. We really got to know what the challenges were that they were facing. We also wanted to look at things from the client side of things, is what was the personal experience? Because as we were visiting these different interim housing facilities, we realized so much of this was about volume. It was about, these things had to be tanks that had to withstand really heavy use, and a lot of thinking from the perspective of individual dignity, comfort, and really creating that kind of stabilizing environment that you want to have in a housing facility. So we tried to find something that could toggle between that spectrum of personal privacy and operator needs for security, give operators a little bit of a flex in terms of where they stand. Some of them had really serious security concerns. So they wanted to be able to walk into a space, see every bed, and address the situation when it came up. Other operators we talked to told us, look, if we give people their personal space and privacy, we have less incidents. And so we want to be able to kind of maximize the personal space and privacy of the units. Part of the reason for the kind of operable piece that you see behind me, the canopy, is to allow operators that flexibility. And it's really what drove the design for the unit. This was the product that we wish we had when we were working on bridge housing. Actually did 5 sites total with BOE. So we did the site analysis, and then we kind of laid out a bunch of prefab components on those sites. They chose one of them. It looks like an office system, metal. It's some of it's metal, and I think there's some composite panels. So we used our internal funding for research to get it kickstarted. And then it started to partner with Shield and developed it from there. This is where we're at now. Second prototype, that final stage of development. We're talking to operators. We're talking to the city. We're going to go through a permitting process here in the next couple of weeks to take this prototype into production. A couple of things changed for the next one in terms of the materials that we're using. Costs, like the price went to be $4,000. There are some toggles that people can choose to do without or with that would affect the price. One is the canopy, which is optional. The other is the step light that's right there, which is an optional element as well. These are really being made. Every order is being custom made by our manufacturer. Minor modifications can be made for each order. This piece is one unit, right? This is what you're getting. It's 2 feet in depth. It's basically a closet, and it kind of slides up against the back wall. 6'2" depth, 7 foot from one unit to the next. It's not really a Murphy bed, but that is the idea for shipping, is that these things collapse down to just those called bread slices, because they kind of look like, think about it like a loaf of bread, right? They all come together and then they open up. So when you unload them off the truck, you're gonna put them at a distance of about 5 feet apart, and then that will be connected by a metal steel structure for your bed frame. We want these to be as efficient as what they already have in Bridge, which is a really compact module. What you're looking at here is the next person, their closet space. That's the depth of that closet. You'll have a spline wall, and you can have it at any height you like. If you want it to be 4 feet, it's just a half wall. And you can wrap that wall at the end condition, or we have a blank unit that you can use as a kind of a hygiene station or a charging station, something like that. But you'll be buying one unit to the end of every row, and it adds 2 feet to the overall plan. The most substantial material is the solid surface material. This is like what you would associate with as a countertop material. Corian, that's a name brand. Solid surface, and in terms of casework, it is the most durable, most cleanable product that you can get. So Shield, they work on 2 things mostly. They work on medical casework in hospitals, because that's the high volume. That's all about, being hygienic and cleanable. And they also work on locker rooms for professional sports teams, because those need to have, someone that's 300 pounds hang on the door and not collapse. This is the stuff that's bulletproof, and we make the entire shell and enclosure and the back out of that material. Inside, the shelves here, and then I'm going to open the door and show you inside. All of that is made out of birch plywood. What we did to lighten it up and to bring some of the cost down is to make all of these go to the same plywood material you see on the door. And then inside the closet, we had laminate. We're going to do also plywood.
You actually have quite a bit of space there if you kind of organize the hooks and shelving. Right?
The whole thing is connected with a hasp and has a lock. Either you bring your lock or you sign a lock. And so that gets locked with your lock. Keep your belongings safe. The front and back canopies come down and give people full visual privacy, but we do not have it come across and cover the top because of this. The fire keeps us from doing that. So we need to have sprinkler access down into the sleeping space. We can't have a canopy above. Fire
it's more of like an observatory type of dome.
As long as you have the 1 foot candle required on the floor for exiting, you can turn that emergency lighting off. If you want to go for a 5 foot or 6 foot high partition, even that's also an option. We could have made this out of a fiberglass mold. It would have been lighter, it would have been cheaper. There's a very much a deliberate idea behind using casework, using panels, because that feels residential. It feels more residential when you have something that's assembled from panels. And so there's very much an intent about making these feel higher quality and residential. And we think that there's a message there. It's telling people that they matter. Electrical that runs along the bottom, and then you can see down there. There's actually an outlet in the floor, in the kickboard and along the floor. We've actually relocated that to inside here to that blank wall. We do want to have power running through these. Having an outlet, and especially like a full outlet where you can plug a laptop in and charge, we think that's a kind of an essential component. Again, it goes back to fire. Like office systems furniture, this type of furniture, they're going to be more concerned with. If we're not able to do that, we could always put an outlet in the pony wall. These units will plug in, right? You'll have this pony wall behind me, or this half wall, that'll have the electrical in it. And you'll slide the units up against that wall and plug them in. Initially, we wanted these to be completely self-contained. And then we realized, well, with the addition of one simple half built-in place wall, you get so much out of that. It makes the whole system so much simpler in terms of separating aisles and separating completely separate environments. Part of that is hygienic also. And so that's what we recommend. And so this step light is going to, again, turn on at each unit and then light the aisleway and give us the 1 foot candle that we need for egress emergency lighting, so that then we can turn off those overhead lights and hopefully give people a better night's sleep. Essentially, the module we're working with is the same module that you see in Bridge housing, which is that 6 foot by 7 foot, 42 square foot dimension.
Yeah.
People come to us and they want to know like, how many of these can I accommodate in my space? How do they lay out? Which is just something that we've been doing for people, just to get them to understand how all of this works. Because, if you understand what a single dome is, a dome unit is, what really makes the difference is when they get laid out in a floor plan and you actually see them in aggregate. So we have laid out those kind of trailer spaces. We've gotten some really oddly shaped existing conditions where, old buildings. We actually did a test fit where there was an exterior wall, and we had this thing on module with the window. So we kind of had the windows marching along. And because they're only these 2-foot slices, you sort of like hit that module and not block any windows. The only thing that comes in and comes out is whether they want the electrical in the unit or it's something that they can plug into, which is a little bit of added cost. The canopy, the fabric component. Then there's the kind of bigger things, like people are asking us for couples units, they're asking us for bunked options. And we're really focusing on, sort of the most, at least initially, the most kind of generic. Yeah. But I think we will start developing a couples unit next.
The reality of transitional shelter is that transitions take longer than we hope.
Would like the length of stay at interim housing. While we hear that it's a month or maybe 3 months at longest, the reality is it's like 6 months, a year, in some instances, even 2 years. And so this is a much more permanent living situation than we as a city would like to admit. It's a transitional place for people to live for some amount of time. And so on our part, there really isn't a lot of interest in terms of developing higher density than this. It gives you visual privacy, right? Because most of the circulation goes this way. So what you're seeing is, the side of the unit. You're not looking into the bed. The only people that are going to be walking down this aisle are the 6 or so other people that live on this aisle. You can see there's a track that's been installed on either end. Yep. And this is just going to slide down the track. You zip it like a tent. So This is part of what we'd like to improve on. But part of the idea was to make this piece inexpensive and washable. The people touching it and sort of the traffic going in and out. We just wanted to make this the piece that you can replace, you can wash. And so that's a little bit of development that's still happening there. This is going to last the 20 plus years that this is going to last. You customize it, you can coat it. There's a lot of things that you can do with the color. So now that we're inside,
give a warm glow to the room.
They're very, very heavy, approximately 600 pounds each. So moving them requires a pallet jack and so or pallet dolly. Your installer is going to come in, move them off the truck, slide them against the wall, bring them into place. And what we have here in the base, we have a removable panel. That panel pops off, and there's 2 places where your forks can go in to move the units. We actually are putting that into the short side here so that you can walk down the aisle and you'll have a panel that's removable at the bottom, and that's where your forks go in to then be able to move the unit. We're getting a lot more ease of moving and maneuvering if you had the side access for like surge situations. If for example, they're having a seasonal surge and they want to increase the density, they can get rid of some common area and load some more of the units in. They can go on a flatbed, they can go in a truck, 52-foot long truck. You're going to get 35 units on that truck, 3 truckloads, and you'll have your 100, which is a kind of good number of people for a typical facility. The minute they touch it and they knock on it, they go, oh my goodness, this is really high quality stuff. When people come in here to tour it, that's the comment I get the most. There are no seams anywhere because when they put together solid surface, it gets welded and sanded out. So it's just this super monolithic, very beautiful piece of casework. A lot of what we see in interim housing, there is a kind of disposable approach to it. It's more about cost and speed than it is about thinking to the future. These aren't disposable. These are as permanent as we could make them. We imagine that these can be stored. They can be used now for this need, and they can be used in the future for future needs. But the design process was 100% like, hey, let's do this and let's do that. We came up with this long list of cool stuff. And then we were like, okay, now we got to bring the price down. We got to make them universal and simple. And so all that kind of stuff came back out.
You really boiled it down to like, there's 4 parts.
Piece of furniture, which is one of these 2-foot wide units that slides up against the wall. Then you have the metal bed frame, which connects this to the next unit. And then if you want, optional fabric canopy.
Getting down to the bare essentials while still providing sort of a high quality private space. Are you inspired at all by like those like luxury sleeping car cabins of like how they use the efficiency of this like tight little space?
We did look at those boats to boat cabins, also first class. It's on an international flight, and you see the kind of seating and what they do, the way that they nest together. We wanted to bring that sort of intelligence to this specific function.
You're sleeping first class when you're in a dome pod. In your journey to permanent housing, it's a perfect match for literally transitional shelter.
Actually, where the name comes from is just the dome tent. A lot of individuals who were experiencing homelessness and talked about their tents as really precious commodities. They gave them a little bit of security. They made a bad situation a little bit better.
What would you say is like the most misunderstood aspect?
Once people get that what they're purchasing is just this piece right here, right? Just that slice, and that the rest of the space is created by bringing the slices and sliding them up against the wall. There's always a kind of moment of, aha, okay, this is actually really simple. I'm not buying a cabin. I'm only buying a piece of furniture that slides up against the wall and creates the space. So we're working with a couple of interested groups. They have not yet placed orders. At this point, when I get calls and inquiries, I usually tell people that I'm rooting for them to be the first. We are looking for the brave first customer. Barrier to that whole process has been time. Most of the people that call us are under a time crunch. And when they learn that this has not yet gone through a Department of Building and Safety approval process, I think that's the thing that really scares people off. By going through that now, which we are doing ahead of time and getting these things pre-approved, we hope to overcome that last hurdle and fill orders. Efficient schedule would be producing 100 in about 2 months. So as volume picks up, we're going to be able to start to pick up the speed on production. It takes us a week or less to do a test fit. And then in that week, we reach out to Shield and they give us a proposal as well. Yeah. Part of that proposal will have their limited lifetime warranty.
What would you say is the most innovative aspect of this solution?
Keeping it simple, keeping it pared down to a piece of furniture that then gives you the privacy and allows the flexibility for operators to sort of turn it into a pod is really where this differentiates itself. Trying to take a design approach to interim housing, which is a place there just hasn't been a lot of thought. Designing a kind of unit like this that's purpose designed for interim housing.
From a bird's eye view, you have your sprung structure, but you have to go down to the user level, the resident. What does their residence look like once they're now in this big space? You put a roof over their head, but you didn't provide sort of a sense of home.
100%. It's not an ideal sleeping experience for anybody to be in a dormitory style sleeping areas. The success of the entire program relies on the success of that one thing, because if people don't stay in interim housing and get themselves into a more permanent situation, then it's not a successful program. They're back out on the street.
Well, Yan, thank you so much for the tour.
Well, it's my pleasure. And I really admire what you're doing. It's much needed.